What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of Calcutta?
Home. And I love to live here.
May I have the privilege of welcoming Mr. Harshavardhan Neotia.
Thank you, Meghdut. One of India's most potent soft power as we move up in the polity of nations as an economic power. We should not look for dominance. We should look for inspiration. And there was one lady, who was at least 80 years old. Esho niche esho. They put her hand on my head. She আমি পুরো জীবন টালির বাড়িতে থেকেছি। এই বয়সে আমি একটা পাকা ছাদের বাড়ি পেলাম। কি আনন্দ লাগছে। তোমাকে খুব ব্লেসিং দিচ্ছি। There is sometimes a headwind and sometimes a tailwind. The tailwind comes in the form of luck and grace. Headwind comes in the form of some challenges. But whatever it is, there is an X factor. T junction came up in 3 days. We didn't have a plan to open a T junction.
So that brand was made to serve city center.
Just because there was no food.
প্রথম প্রেমের জায়গা ছিল হচ্ছে সিটি সেন্টার 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Make Calcutta Relevant Again, the podcast. And today, perhaps in all of these days of doing a podcast, I find myself in front of somebody that I have seen as a mentor to not just me, but any young individual who gets into the space of entrepreneurship, who gets into the space of appreciating the city for what it is, and in terms of creating a city that will be inherited by the future generations, which is much better than the city perhaps that we inherited from our previous generations. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have the privilege of welcoming Mr. Harshavardhan Neotia onto the podcast.
Thank you, Meghdut.
Really appreciate you coming here, and it's been a dream for me to have you on the podcast. It's not the first time that we are on a panel, but in most cases what ends up happening is the narrative is taken away by the moderator, and then they'll ask you some things, then they'll ask me some things, and in the end the things that I want to ask you never ever come out into the open. So here for once I was like, there are things that I want to know from him, even from a very personal scale, because you're not just a business person, you're not just an entrepreneur, you're not just an industrialist. The thing that perhaps I find the most fascinating about you is the silent taste maker that you are. You have incredible taste, and this is something as a young person growing up. I remember my parents have a place not very far away from Uttalika and Upohar and that Umbuja properties. For me, Umbuja was synonymous with taste, with good design, with a sense of architecture that was not over the top, that was not gaudy. It was also something that was very relevant with the city that it found itself in. The same way has that been that for your own identity. You're as Bangali as it gets. Even today, তোমার সাজ পোশাকের মধ্যেও একটা বাঙালিয়ানা যেটা which is never forced, which is never performative, which is never for optics. And I think that's what makes you stand very tall as a person, not just because you're very tall as a person, but very tall as a personality as well. So I feel honored to have you on the podcast today.
Well, thank you very much. I think you've said a lot more than I deserve, maybe. But, I have born and brought up in Calcutta, grew up here, I think for 120 years or maybe 130 years, our family has lived in this city. Though we came from Rajasthan long back, but this has been our home. As regards the tastes that you're talking about, actually, I can't take too much of credit for it because I haven't really studied arts in any formal way. It's really thanks to where I was born. The fact that I was in a joint family, the fact that everyone was involved in the arts in some way, not as performers or doers in terms of being an artist, but in terms of patrons, in terms of knowledge about the arts. So whether it was music, whether it was literature, whether it was philosophy, whether it was fine art, these were things that I was surrounded with as a young child growing up. And because you were in a joint family and different members have different interests, I got kind of pulled in and drawn into various such interactions with visitors who frequented our home.
Mm.
So somewhere osmotically, I think I absorbed many of the thoughts and ideas that floated around. And I didn't even know that it had formed something inside me. It really came to fore when I was doing my buildings. And that too was not a profession. I'll speak about that later, that I either inherited from the family or even wanted to do it. Like I didn't even know that I'd do it. But somehow that came out because I started enjoying architecture, though architecture was not a field that my family in any way pursued. But it has a close relationship with the arts. So that happened. And then early in life, I found very interesting mentors. Prabir Mitra, for one, great architect he almost treated me like a son. And I had a very warm relationship with him. Mr. Ashok Nayak was the first architect who introduced me to what good architecture is all about. And then Balkishan Doshi came into my life and he designed Udyan for us. And he was not just a great architect, he's probably India's most celebrated architect. But he was also a philosopher, he was a teacher. So he took me under his wings and really that understatement that you talk about, the elegance that you talk about, the simplicity, those are things which are, of course, quintessentially very much rooted in our own soil of Bengal, but it's also an idea that I got from Doshi Sahab. And those influences, I think, were important, my family and these architects.
Udyan, you spoke about it, that also won the model housing project by the union government, and this was one of your first projects that you had started off. It almost set the path for what was to become of the Ambuja Neotia Group's housing and development arm as such. What is it that, when you look back at that time of your career, what are the things that you think, other than getting Mr. Balkishan Doshi as the architect perhaps, what are the things that you think were good things that you did?
So I sometimes, as they say, success has many fathers and failure is an orphan. So one can look back and attribute a lot of things to whatever happened. But actually, when I was setting out on the path, and I must go back one step before Udyan, our family, when I was in college, was setting up a cement plant in Gujarat. And my folks wanted me to be part of the team that was building that. And I went there in the middle of one of the summer months of May or June with my father. We had to fly from here to Bombay, from Bombay to Rajkot. Then from Rajkot, it was some 4-5 hours. Those days, the roads were this is 1983. The roads were very sort of iffy. So, and then 46 degrees, hot like hell. And then we were under a tent on a site with, those days there were no computers, so we had this huge table with this huge blueprints lying on it, and 10 odd engineers with their helmets sort of peering over the drawings that I could understand nothing about. So I stayed there for 2-3 days with my father, and then came back feeling that, no, this is not my cup of tea. I'm not going to be able to do this. Dad was not at all amused. He thought that this was a rather strange thing. I was the only son amongst 3 brothers, and I was expected to do what the family was. And that was the single largest investment that we were making. But anyway, somehow I managed to get out of it, maybe because I was the only son. I had the little indulgence. And so I used to be in Calcutta, going to our office here, which had pretty not much work to do because it was a family office. Our businesses were in UP and Bihar and now Gujarat. So Calcutta was just, we lived here. We had no work here. So I was absolutely nothing to do for a few months. I was going to work, going to office because I was supposed to do that. And I was not doing anything. So one day in the evening, a family friend came over And he mentioned that he had a 6 kata piece of land at a place called Chaurangi Lane, which is behind Chaurangi Road, connects Sada Street to Kid Street. And he was trying to sell it and couldn't find a buyer. And somebody suggested to him, why don't you make a block of apartments? He said, I'm migrating to Bombay. And I was sitting there. My uncle looked at me and said, Are, you're doing nothing. Why don't you make this block of apartments? I was exactly 21 and a half, and I had no bloody clue how to go about doing this. But anyway, cut to the chase, I kind of said yes, okay. And the reason I said yes is because I was feeling so hopeless that I was doing nothing. So I kind of grappled around. I was put in touch with a few people, Mr. Ashok Naik being one of the architects. He took a lot of fondness for me, and so therefore said, I'll guide you. And, one led to another, and finally, with God's grace, the building came up. And it came up on time, it came up reasonably well. Whatever we hoped to achieve out of that small project of, I think it was 15 or 16 apartments, was achieved, 800 square feet apartments. So that kind of gave me the confidence to look for the next project and the next. And then I started Conclave. And I think we did about 8-9 small buildings before we actually did Udyan. So this was the journey. As I said, it was not something that I thought that I'll do. It just happened by accident. Yes, it is true that once I got involved, I tried, and one of the things that family had taught me that जो भी कुछ काम करो अच्छे से करो and शिद्दत से करो. So I said, okay, I have to do this well. And that's the only thing that guided me. So when the opportunity came to bid for the Udyan project, because it was under tender of the West Bengal government, and we applied, and they decided to select 2 companies instead of 1, because we were about 13, 14 companies that applied at that time. And we were ranked number 2.
Okay.
And that's again another luck, because if they had chosen 1 company, then it would have been Peerless, because that was ranked 1. And so Bengal Peerless was created.
Right.
But they decided to have 2. So we got in. So that was another quirk of luck. And then the largest project I had done till then was on 40 kathas of land. And now this was 25 acres. So you can understand I was completely... So it was, I had no idea that we were going to build a model housing project or any such thing. I said, Baba, eta ki kore bujbo, kibhabe korbo. Jai hok, I used to pray every day that God, I have taken up this massive project, much beyond my understanding, much beyond my scale. Give me some wisdom how to make it work, just. And I would be happy if it worked. So obviously the first thing was, which architect will you choose? So I started exploring. I had a young colleague working with me who was an architect, and he was a little studious kind. So he kind of read up all about architecture and things like, not just about architectural design, but about architects. So he said, you should get Doshi. I said, why? He said, he just got the Aga Khan Award for low-cost housing in Indore. So he will have an understanding of the LIG-MIG component. I said, first time I heard the word LIG. I said, I couldn't understand what the hell does it mean. They said low income housing. Okay, then HIG, so MIG, middle income housing. So what is this? Okay, this is such a tiny... When I first went to see an LIG housing that was built by the West Bengal Housing Board, I said, God, how do you at all build something so small? And it's a kitchen, and it's 300 square feet with a living room, a bedroom, a toilet, a pantry, and a small veranda. Can you believe it? 350 square feet, in super built up. So built up area is probably 270 square feet. So anyway, so I saw that. I said, wow, this is something quite extraordinary. And obviously there was a cross-subsidy model, etc., etc. So be that as it, the math was one side. I said, how do I design this project? Anyway, went to Doshi. There's a long story. He didn't agree. And then somehow, that story is not so important. He agreed. But that was after almost about 6-8 months of talking to him on several occasions. Once he agreed, at least one thing was cracked, that he will be able to design something for us, which is nice. Because, he was who he was. But the problem was, how do you make the math work?
Mm.
Because you have to provide subsidy to the low income and the middle income, and you have to get the subsidy out of charging a premium on the high income. Now, we were a nobody, and this was in the boondocks at that time. There was no lights on the road. There used to be one simple, now which is a 8-lane thoroughfare, was a single lane without a divider road with deep gorges on both sides. If you drove at night, you could just slip off into the...
Nobody would find you the next day.
Yeah. So anyway, at that time you couldn't have any great plan. The only thing that I had in mind was, if I have to sell HIG next to the LIG, MIG, and everyone told me, boss, how will you do this? Because those are different people. And, how are you going to charge a premium here when you have this kind of colony right next to it? So I said, well, I have to sell this at a premium, otherwise there's no viability. I must make that stuff very good so that the environment is good. So that was one thought. The second thought was, we did a research, and 3 things came out of that research. One was that people were generally upset at the quality of low income and middle income housing. Leaking, there's that, etc. So there was quality.
Like basic human dignity was perhaps...
Yeah, that the quality of construction generally was not very high. Second was that people were concerned that there's no schedule of delivery. It could be 2 years delayed, 3 years delayed. Third was there was a rampant cash element in housing, particularly for the higher income group, where cash was very prevalent. So we said, okay, we're going to make this very transparent. We're going to have no cash element. Obviously, we were in a joint sector with the government, so there's no question of it. The second thing we said, okay, we're going to ensure quality, and therefore we'll promise a certain quality standard. We'll also promise how we will monitor that quality. And third, we will give you a penalty, which was the first time ever that any private builder had said that if I don't deliver to you within this stipulated time, I'll actually pay you a monthly penalty for every month of delay.
And you came up with that model. You said,
yes,
we will give it...
We will give it because that was a research finding that people were very upset with the inordinate delay in getting possession of apartments.
They would also make you more accountable to finish on time.
Right. So it was... And obviously we had to walk the talk, which there was always good intention, but the point was, how do you communicate that? So these were the 3 things that we promised, and it was a huge hit on the day one. I mean, this is probably one of those rare instances where I was overwhelmed with the response. We had some 1:30 lottery for the low income. We used to have 1:6 lottery for the HIG, which was at a premium. So that kind of set the tone for what was to come. And I think what must have appealed to people, one was the design. The other were the promises that we had put in to the document. And I remember that on the foundation stone laying ceremony, Pranab Mukherjee was there, as he was there as External Affairs Minister, and Jyoti was there. And he commented, I don't remember if it was Jyoti who commented or Pranab Mukherjee. I've never heard, because my speech was earlier as a welcome address where I mentioned. He said, I've never heard of any private builder making a commitment that you'll give a penalty. So that was, so he mentioned, one of them mentioned, I don't remember just now as to who it was. And so that was it. That's how it started, the journey. And then the rest, I would say, is God's grace, because, you can do what you want. At the end of the day, at least I strongly believe that no matter what you do, there is sometimes a headwind and sometimes a tailwind. The tailwind comes in the form of luck and grace. Headwind comes in form of some challenges, maybe past karma. But whatever it is, there is an X factor. I have long believed that our effort is important, very important, but not sufficient for whatever outcomes happen in life.
Do you think if you hadn't put in, let's say, the penalty, or you hadn't put in one of the other factors from your research findings and taken the easy way out, do you think the success that followed after Udyan was completed, do you think it would have been much different?
Possibly, but this is very difficult to imagine because we were not doing anything other than what we were responding to a feedback. And we said, okay, we must, if this is the feedback we are getting, we need to fix it. And fix it in a way that people will trust it. Now, whether they would trust it is another story because you had no credibility. I mean, your credibility was, number one, well, I came from a family that had a certain credibility, but I had no track record in housing of any consequence.
Or as a person, also at that point, I think your personal credibility was nothing to be...
Yeah, I was a young 32-year-old, 33-year-old guy who was kind of had made a few houses, but came from a legacy family, I have to say, and I must say that must have contributed significantly in the mental assurance of people. I'm sure one very important factor was that it was a joint sector undertaking where the government was involved. If that was not so, maybe that credibility, people felt that at least there's government, there is some oversight. And the chairman of the company was a government nominee. It was the former chief secretary, Rothin Sengupta Sahib. So I think those factors were there, but the appeal came from, the credibility came from there, but the appeal came from the promises and the product. And Doshi was not well known in Calcutta at that time. I mean, and Doshi became a much bigger legend many years later when he got the Pritzker Award and he got the Royal Academy Award and the Padma Vibhushan and all of those. But those happened in the last 10 years, not in the time when we are talking about.
He went back and designed the new Nalanda University also, the new Nalanda University campus.
So I think it's very difficult to say what would have been. Frankly speaking, at that moment, my mind was that যে কোনোভাবে বাবা এত বড় প্রজেক্ট নিয়েছি কোনোভাবে এমন লোকের কাছে বাড়িটা চলে যাক আর আমার বাড়ি থেকে কিছু টাকা না যাক something comes, I would have been very happy. So that was our limited expectation.
But having a model housing project named, and then I'm sure a lot of other projects also happened in that sort of way that you created, right? You showed path to a lot of people through that project.
So that also, was, one day this was, I think, 1998. 98. Mr. Ram Jethmalani was the urban development minister, maybe 99. 98, I think. He was the urban development minister. And I got a call from the chairman of HUDCO who had financed us. Early morning, 7 o'clock, I had just acquired a mobile phone in 1996, I think. This is 2 years later. So I was sleeping.
কমান্ডের ফোনগুলো
বড় বড়
বড় অ্যান্টেনা থাকতো ছুঁড়ে মারলে মানুষের মাথা ফেটে যাবে ওইটা
it was I used to carry it in a bag because I couldn't fit into your pocket. So Jayok, so he phoned me and I still remember I was sleeping and he said, Harsh, I'm Suresh speaking. I said, yes sir. He said, listen, I am at the airport and we are flying into Calcutta and Mr. Ram Jethmalani is with me on the flight. And I told him about your project which we had financed and he would like to see it. And the only time that's available to him is right as soon as he lands.
এয়ারপোর্ট থেকে শহরে ঢোকার সময়
ওই সময় তুমি যদি এয়ারপোর্ট চলে এসো আর উনি যাবেন and he'll spend 15 minutes and then he'll go off for his thing. I woke up in a daze. I said, bloody shit, in 2 hours I have to reach the airport. And then the urban development minister is coming. I phoned up my chairman. I said, sir, you must come because he said, hey, সকালে কোথায় থেকে আমি I said, sir, কিছু করার নেই. So he said, okay, আমি আসছি. Then I said, "Ki korbe?" To mane phulta, arrange the flower. And I said, "What will he do?" So I said, "We have to plant a tree." So I got my. So it was a drama of real kind.
ওই কোণে সাজানোর মতো যেরকম হয় না যে বিয়ে করতে যাবে কোণে সাজানোর মতো নিয়ে গিয়ে যে ওনাকে দেখাও প্রজেক্টটা
Jayok, I went to the airport, I picked him up, and then of course, I was in another car and came to the project site. And he spent an hour there. I'm sure he must have delayed his other things. He went around, walked around, saw, and then he says, Barkhurdar. I still remember the word he said, Barkhurdar. I don't know what it meant exactly. He says, Barkhurdar, aap humse Delhi mein aakar miliye. So I said, Ji sir, zarur aange. He said, aap aiye. I need to discuss this project with you. Very interesting. Gave his blessings. I took his pranam kurla and he left. His office phoned me up. I thought ki theek hai, chief minister bole chhe ki. His office phoned me up, sir, आप कब आएंगे? I said, अरे, I said, करना क्या है? बोले, सर, आप एक काम करिएगा, एक प्रेजेंटेशन लेकर आइएगा. हमने कहा, प्रेजेंटेशन? बोला, हाँ, साहब बोले कि आप एक प्रेजेंटेशन लाइएगा, थोड़ा फोटोग्राफ्स होना चाहिए, ये होना चाहिए. क्या है, कैसा प्रोजेक्ट बनाया, ये क्या? ठीक है. 15 days later, I was in Delhi. He met me and he said, my secretary will now take you. We have some people in the conference room. And I need you to make the presentation as to what exactly you have done. I go in and there are 40 IS officers there. Okay. And they are housing or urban development secretaries of various states. Apparently his office has written a letter that there is a project which is very interesting.
And 40 of them have turned up to see the...
Yeah. There must have been 10, 15 from his own ministry. And then some... And usually some states were not represented and some states sent 2 people and whatever. So anyway, somewhere around 40 odd people were there in this conference room. I saw that everyone was around, I was 36, 37, 38 at that time. No one below 45 or 50. So anyway, I said, oh God, I've got to talk to these guys and what am I going to say? Anyway, it was a 15-minute, 20-minute presentation. I had it. Nobody said a word. Nobody even kind of applauded or anything. I was like cold, like shit. I didn't know what was going on. So I felt like, I don't know whether I said something right or wrong. Kichu bujhlam na. Jai ho, a few people asked 1 or 2 questions and then I think in half an hour, 40 minutes, I was out of the place. Then few months later, I get a letter that your project has been declared a model housing project. And this letter is going to all the housing ministers of all the states. I went on a holiday with my family to London. And then I was in London, I remember, and I get a call that 2 days later, Mr. Chandrababu Naidu, Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, is coming to Calcutta for something and he wants to visit the project. I said, what? So I was on a holidays. I just mentioned it to my dad. I said, "Theek hai, if he visits, please make the arrangements and, please receive him and whatever." And I phoned up my chairman. I said, "Sir, are you in Calcutta?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Sir, will you please? I'm in London." And my dad listened to me. He says, "Are you mad? Take a flight this evening and get back to Calcutta. Chandrababu Naidu is coming to your project and you want to be on a holiday?" I said, "You must be joking. He is one of the most dynamic chief ministers. You better get there." So I said, "Oh God,
now it's done. So much for family holiday. I don't know what your wife or your kids. I don't know if you had kids.
Yeah. No, I didn't have kids. I had kids. Yeah, but kids were not there with us.
Yeah,
mother was there. So anyway, I was packed off, and so I came, and then I received him, and then of course one led to another. Many chief ministers came. So it kind of, it snowballed into something that I had not envisaged nor imagined. It just happened. Someone can think that you must have done something greatly visionary or you must have really pulled strings or got, said. I said, my God, I didn't do anything. Why it took a why I took this larger than life.
Almost a snowball effect that
Yeah,
happened, right?
yeah,
It just things kept
on
up.
its own. I mean, in a way, I was literally overwhelmed because to top it all, at the end of this, the President of India came, the Prime Minister of India came. So, for a housing project in middle of nowhere, it kind of just became something that people thought would be a very interesting model of cross subsidy, of how to bring private sector into providing low income and middle income housing. I think that must have been what must have triggered. I'm not sure what. I mean, frankly speaking, I don't know what led to all of this,
And I
except
think
that it was, in a way, very in the moments a little bewildering, but also extremely humbling, because it kind of gave me newfound confidence, as well as it brought me to feel the sense of responsibility. I have a very touching moment. It was the day when we had inaugurated the first low income, middle income housing scheme, and then Chief Minister Jyoti Babu had come and inaugurated, and Buddhadev Babu was also with him. And after the inauguration was over, the families were called and they were just looking around the complex and all. I was standing there. One little child comes, tugs at my trousers and says, "Uncle, uncle, thank you." I said, "Okay, thank you very, very." বাবা বলছে যে এই আঙ্কেলটা আমাদের বাড়ি দিয়েছে, তো তুমি একটু আঙ্কেলকে থ্যাংক ইউ বলে এসো। So a little moved, I gave her a pat on the back. What else did I do? I said, okay. First time in my life I experienced this thing. Then I went a little further, and there was one lady who was at least 80 years old. And she was sitting on a chair and she said, "Shona, ekhane esho." So I went and I said, "Ha." "Esho, niche esho." They put her hand on my head. যে আমি পুরো জীবন টালির বাড়িতে থেকেছি, এই বয়সে আমি একটা পাকা ছাদের বাড়ি পেলাম, কি আনন্দ লাগছে, তোমাকে খুব ব্লেসিং দিচ্ছি। I kind of, I said, oh my God, this is real people, touched by the fact that they are going to, she is 80 years old, she's lived all her life in a tali ka chat ka ghar. First time she's going to move in 80 years of her life into a home which has got a concrete roof over its head. And she is blessing me. I think those moments, 2-3 of them that happened that day, really touched me in a way that not any commercial project can.
then those blessings perhaps keep pushing you to re-innovate, rethink.
Yes,
things
I
that
mean,
you
in
do.
some way they do add a lot of responsibility because, the fact that I remember those two little, very touching, small incidents, nothing great, but it's now what? That was 1997, and we are talking of
30 years
30
later.
years later.
It's the little moments that create a... I mean, the transfixed hoye shunchi. Sometimes I think I'm forgetting that I'm on a podcast. I feel like I am, in your Sundar Boshar Ghar, and we're just having a chat, and I think Mr. Neotia is one of those rare storytellers where in modern day storytelling, a lot of it we see is, a lot of energy, like high energy, and there's modulation, all of that, and you have this calm demeanor about you. But I believe that when the Mahabharata was being written, perhaps, I think এরকম একটা সুন্দর করে কেউ বসে লিখছিল আর কেউ বলছিল, এরকম হাঁ করে তাকিয়ে থেকে গল্পগুলো শুনছিল. I think this is what is happening a little bit right now with me. Again, I've known you for quite a while now, and I don't think you're the kind of person who has anything in excess. This idea of excess, when people get into privilege or when they get into a space of success, that becomes mm, quite apparent. And this is something that you've always shied away from. It's never been you've never been a garrulous person, but there's always a sense of calm and a sense of responsibility at the back of it, which seems like it could be a great lesson for young people that are watching the podcast today as well. I want to know here a little bit about your family, about the kind of husband that you are, the kind of father that you are as well. I know at least Parthiv fairly well, and I've seen him also having, imbibed some of those things from you, other than your height, of course. We keep coming back to that. But in that moment, I want to go back to that story where you said you were in London and your father said, "Ei pore flight ta niye phirot esho." I'm sure for Madhu auntie that must not have been an easy moment, perhaps, or how does that establish you as a partner, as a husband, as a father in your family scape?
So the work ethic in my family was always that. So, for instance, right as a child, when we grew up, and we in those days economically we were not in distress, but we were not rich in any way. When I was young, so we used to have only one holiday in a year, and that used to be a longish holiday of about 2-3 weeks. And as a whole family, grandparents, because we were a joint family, we would go off to some hill station. It was usually in summer only. And they would obviously can't stay in hotels and things, so we would hire a bungalow of some kind somewhere. And then some staff would also go to cook and things like that. And we would spend. And there was one written understanding that everyone will go, but my dad and uncle may or may not come. Because ওদের কাজের উপরে ডিপেন্ড করে এবং ওরা যদি আসতো তো হতে পারে 2-3 দিনের জন্য এলো না 10-5 দিনের জন্য এলো তারপর চলে গেল আবার কোনো সময় দুবার চলে এলো বাট it was very clear that our work is priority. Grandparents, the women of the house and the children, they can have their holiday. Both of us should be kept as tentative. That's the work I think I grew up with, that work is first. And there is nothing that, until today, that remains to be so. And for work, if there's a trip I have to cancel, a dinner I have to cancel, I mean, it's going to be cancelled. So I think Madhu, when she got married and came into the house, she realized that this is what it is. So I don't think there was any, and she's been a very supportive partner, so in any case, but irrespective, that was a thing that she grew up with. I mean, she kind of imbibed from the day she came to our home, and she was very naive. She had no fixed ideas at the time, so she just grew up to accept that this is what it is because she saw my parents do that. So that wasn't a challenge at all. It isn't even today.
What about your kids?
Kids also, they just grew up with that ethic. No, they saw their grandparents do that. My uncle and father, till the day they passed away, they were working, and they were kind of just they were put that priority. So they know that, they've seen that. I don't think even if I'm sure it must be bothering them sometimes when they have complained that we missed you a lot while you were growing up because you were busy with your work. One thing was also there, as a family, we didn't share it so much with the kids, but when my uncle and father, all three of us won't travel out together. So if my uncle and father went with the kids, then I had to stay back. And they sometimes thought that dad is ignoring us, but it was not that. I mean, we would not, all three of them being out of country at the same time was not, it was not that it never happened, but it very, very rarely happened. And it was not we had an understanding that sabko nahi jana chahiye. So, and I thought that grandparents, the children had limitation because they didn't have too many holidays. So I said they'll enjoy the kids more. They want to do it. So I kind of stayed back.
At any point in this journey, you did speak about legacy, and I think, of course, coming from a family business, we're not getting into how big it was before and how big you made it, so on and so forth. But did the Neotia surname ever prove to be a burden or a baggage or a hindrance in the kind of way that you perceived life or how you perceived your um, career to grow? Maybe not in the most usual or conventional path.
No, it wasn't, because two things I must say that when I grew up, I kind of was not. I think grew up in a liberal household.
Mm-hmm.
If I chose to do something other than business, would I be discouraged? No. But you know how it happens. There is a polite nudge. I think my son will also complain of the same thing. There's a polite nudge that you had on the valley. Arey, business kaun dekhega, kind of, things like that, which kind of gave me the feeling that this is what they would be happy to. And I didn't have a deep passion for something else.
Mm.
It was not like I sacrificed something to do business. I had no formed opinion.
Mm.
So I said, if this is what the folks want and I don't seem to have any problem with it, then let's go along with it. So I didn't think that I was doing something because I was expected to do only.
Mm.
I was expected to do. But I also thought that, chalo, yahi karte hain, kya hai?
Mm.
It also interested me because a lot of the conversations that we had over dinner were around business.
Mm.
So I understood some things of it, what they don't teach you at Harvard Business School on the dinner table at home. So that kind of thing was there. And I think it kind of helped me in many ways, because when I see some of the nuggets of wisdom that come back to me in the moments of different situations, I remember a dialogue that my grandfather said, or my uncle said, or my father said, that comes back, plays back, and says, this is. So I think that's how it is. And of course, as far as both my children are concerned, well, I'm truly blessed to have them, because they are, well, I shouldn't say it. It's not good for a father to praise their children, but yeah, I mean, they are bright. They are, I think, working hard in their respective areas, and you never know what fate has in store for anyone, and so you should not over expect. But I hope that they'll receive the same blessings that I got from everywhere, and they'll also do well.
As somebody who has built consistently in the city and whose name is almost, মানে বাংলা যেটা বলে না, ওতপ্রোতভাবে জড়িয়ে আছে শহরের সাথে, it's intrinsically linked with the identity of the city as well. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of Calcutta?
Home. There is a interesting aspect to this. When I kind of decided that I don't want to get involved with the cement factory that was coming up, at that time I spoke to my family that we have all lived in Calcutta. Why can't we do business here? So my father had an engineering company. Unfortunately, it had labor trouble, and then there was a great load shedding period in Calcutta.
It's true. What era was this?
This was in the mid 70s.
Yeah.
And late 70s.
Mm.
And because of that massive load shedding, those days generators were not for heavy engineering company. So it was an unviable project to have 5 hours or 6 hours of electricity. So the company became sick.
Mm.
And finally we had to let it go. Before that, we had a cotton mill, and the entire cotton business moved from this side to western side, mostly in Maharashtra and Gujarat. So that kind of died. It was subscale, and got into a vicious cycle where you didn't have the capital to make it large enough, and the whole ecosystem had moved on the other side of India. So we had these two quite big losses that the family had suffered. One was in the early mid-60s and one was in the late 70s. So I was now talking about in the late 80s or middle 80s. So both my father and uncle were a little exhausted.
Skeptical even, perhaps.
So they loved Calcutta as a city. They wanted to live here. But they said, Hobena. And I used to think, obviously, I was not tainted with those traumas because I was too young. In one case, though, I was not born also, maybe just born. In the other case, I was early, maybe 10, 12 years old, 13 years old. But I didn't have much of an experience except to know that there were some labours coming to our home, the gate was shut and they were shouting slogans, Murdabad to my father, etc. And I was kind of taken aback. So I have one or two recollections of some incidents like that, but I didn't have the full sense of what exactly happened. So I was a little romantic, you may say. I said, hey, we live here, we love the city, why can't we work here? So when this opportunity came to do this little housing, one of the things that was deep in my heart was we got to make something happen here. And this was not out of any philosophy or any great thing, just the fact that we lived here and I love to live here. So I said, why can't I work here? It's so sad that my father and uncle were weekend visitors to Calcutta. And all my life I've grown up seeing them Monday to Friday in some other city of India. I said, theek na. So with that little romanticism, without understanding the pitfalls of whatever it is, I said, okay, let's embark. With God's grace, you may say beginner's luck or whatever, it worked out. Then we set up Conclave, which was my second project. The interesting story there is 1987 we opened Conclave. I was 26 years old. And one member phoned me one day and said that I'd like you to come and join me for dinner. I didn't know him, but he had just become a member of the club.
It was one of the first business clubs, maybe the first business club.
First business club. There was no business in Bengal. My father used to make such a mockery out of it. He says, "Kya business nahi hai idhar, yahan tum business club bana raha hai." So it was kind of so. And you know why it happened? Because he had gone to London we had some supplier who was giving equipments for our cement plant, who was a German company. And so there was a meeting in London and my father was to meet him at a business club in London. That's the first time I've ever visited a business club that I knew. So I was on a holiday with him and he said, "I'm ja rahe hain is meeting me, tum chalo." I went with him. So then he wanted to have a discussion with that guy. So they went inside and I was sitting in the reception. There's this pretty young lady sitting behind the reception desk. So I said, what to do? Let's chat her up. So I chatted her up. And then I said, what is this? She said, it's a business club. I said, what happens here? So she kind of was kind enough. So she took me around for a walk and showed me. And essentially it was a place where you had little meeting rooms and you had place to eat and you had a bar, etc., etc. I was making this office building in Lower Circular Road. And I came, I said, I must have a business club in it. I don't know, flight of fancy. I have no bloody clue what the hell I was getting into. So we had some unsold space. So I said, I'm going to convert that. My father, I told him, he said, are you daft? There's no business here. What are you doing with a business club? And what you've seen in London works in London, doesn't work here. So I said, no, I want to do it. I'm damn excited. I saw this. And theek hai. Indulgent father said, spoiled son, chalo, jo karta karne do. So I kind of jumped into that. And then, of course, there was a whole story. I don't know. I had no clue about how to do F&B and, this whole saga of finding a chef and making the food work. And Conclave was known for good food later. How much I must have put on several kilos only doing food tasting. And I was
the qualms of every restaurant owner ever.
Yeah. And I was a vegetarian. And obviously when you have a club, you have to have non-veg. So I had always to have a friend who tastes the non-veg because And they would say, boss, तुम फिर हमको मुर्गा बना रहे हैं यहाँ पर. हम बोले, खाओ ना मुर्गा को खाओ, बताओ ठीक है कि नहीं. I can't eat it. So anyway, so that was there. So then this gentleman phoned me and he said, you must come for dinner. I said, okay. Then he called me again. He said, see, I've invited some VIP for dinner. So please take special arrangements. So I said, okay. In the morning, my guys tell me, boss, there's a bloody swarmed with police and all have come here to check it and this, that. Who's coming? I said, oh,
some VIP.
Some VIP. So I called him up. He said, Chief Minister Jyoti Basu is coming. I said, holy cow. I said, अरे वो तो communist chief minister है, business club में आएगा, तो पता नहीं क्या बोलेगा. I froze.
He stands against the entire idea of what a business club would be.
And then he's invited me on top of it. I said, so I was so scared. You can't imagine. Both Madhu and I were invited. We realized that we were a group of hardly 12 to 15 people. And Jyoti Babu came promptly on time. And he sat. And then, of course, I kept away because I didn't know I don't know him. I've never met him in my life.
But this was the first time you were in the same room?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen him on stage somewhere, but no, never. And my father and uncle never met him also personally. I mean, they may have seen him somewhere. So I was really wary. I stood away. Then he said, Jyoti Babu must have asked the guy, what is happening? What is this place? What's happening? So he said, no, there's this young boy. Let me introduce. He called me. He said, oh, baniyeche. Acha, ki ache? I was trying to tell him that. Jyoti Babu said, shono, amake ekটু ঘুরে দেখাও. So he walked around the club and tried to understand what was going on and all. I said, "Theek hai, so far so good." He sat down. He was having his chit-chat with his friends and all. Then we went and there was a sit-down dinner. So we were on 2 tables because we were more than 8 people. So one table with Jyoti Babu and all of them, and then one table I was there with some other people. Halfway to the dinner, this guy who had invited us, he comes and he says he wants you on that table. So I said, okay.
Oh God.
So half the food left, I went over there. And then he's asking me many questions about what is this club, how will it work, etc., etc. And I was, by then, some level of nervousness had gone, but I was really shitting in my pants because first of all, 26 years old. He is legendary Jyoti Babu. Okay, and
people used to piss their pants, just having him in the same.
And I have no clue as to why he's even bothering to talk to me, but he did. Anyway, I was quite touched. So I went to see him off and to the car. And as he was getting into the car, I said, sir, I have never been to the writer's building. If you permit, I'll come and just pay my courtesy call and take your blessings. Ashbe, nishchoy ashbe. And there was Joy Krishna Ghosh there. So he said, tumi your number jano? I said, I'll get it, no problem. Okay, bolbe. I came very excited that now I'm going to... I've never entered the writer's building till then. Obviously, what would I have to do there? So I came home and I told my father that I met Jyoti Basu. He asked me to sit in front of him. He spoke to me for 5-10 minutes. And then...
all of it because of your business club.
Think
about it.
Yeah. And that too, an incident. I was invited. I can tell you for certain that I was invited because the guy wanted to make sure that the service is right.
মালিক থাকলে নিশ্চয়ই খাবারটা খারাপ খাওয়া হবে না
মানে একটু বেশি attention হবে নতুন জায়গা and it had just opened maybe 6 months or 8 months before that. So anyway, so then I phoned up Joy Krishna Ghosh and he said, কি তোমার কি কাজ আছে? আমি কোনো কাজ নেই। তো বলে কেন আসতে চাইছো? স্যার আমি তো আপনার সামনেই বললাম সাহেবকে যে আমি একটু আসবো, জাস্ট একটু কার্টসি কল করবো আর চলে। আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে আমি জানাবো। I told my father, he said, you're a nutcase. I said, why? He said, अरे उसको कुछ काम धंधा नहीं है कि तुमको वहाँ पर बुलाएगा? करेगा क्या? What do you want? I said, no, nothing. So he said, then why do you want to go and disturb the chief minister? I said, well, it's nice to go and meet him if he allows me. And I've never been to a chief minister's room, so it's nice to go and see it. I said, you don't waste your time and forget it. Now just keep quiet and carry on with your work. So I said, okay. But I never got a call back. So my dad again, uncle,
Tana
after
marne ke
15 days, he says, "Kya phone aaya?" I said, "Nahi aaya." I don't know why. I phoned up Joy Krishna Ghosh again. I said, "Joy Babu, আরে ভাই তোমাকে তো জিজ্ঞেস করলাম কি কাজ আছে, স্যার কোনো কাজ নেই, কিন্তু সাহেবকে একটু নমস্কার করে চলে আসবো স্যার, 5 মিনিট একটু টাইম করে দিলে ভালো হয়। আচ্ছা আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে, আমি দেখবো। I don't know what happened. That day he went to CM for his work and all. In the course of his discussion with the CM, he just mentioned that, sir, ওই দিন ডিনারে গিয়েছিলেন ওই একটা ক্লাবে, ও ছেলেটা ওকে সে ফোন করেছিল যে বলছে আপনার, বলে হ্যাঁ তো অনেক দিন হয়ে গেল, তো সে তো আসেইনি এতদিনে, তো হ্যাঁ তো ডেকে নাও। তো যদি দিস জয় কৃষ্ণ ঘোষ comes back and phones me frantically, কোথায় আছেন? আমি বলে স্যার আমি ক্যালকাটা অনলি, হ্যাঁ আপনি আসতে পারেন আফটারনুনে? আমি বলে হ্যাঁ চলে আসবো, আসুন আমার ঘরে চলে আসবেন। So I went to his room. He said, শুনুন, আমি প্রথমবার জিজ্ঞেস করেছি আজকে, আগে জিজ্ঞেস করিনি, আপনি গিয়ে বলবেন না যে 15 দিন আগে ফোন করেছি। I said, কেন কি হলো? He said, না উনি আমাকে আমি বললাম, তবে উনি বললেন তো অনেক দিন আগে বলেছিল, কি হলো? I was so touched that he could remember, and I have never met him before, and my interaction was 10 minutes.
Yeah. He remembered you fondly because I guess you left a mark on him. Obviously, must have been.
Or, so, I'm coming to the Calcutta question, and there's a very interesting twist here. So I go to him, and then he says, he's stoic, he hardly smiles. So it was intimidating to get into the chief minister's room and sit in front of him, and then, আর কি করছেন, কি করবেন, etc., whatever he said. And then, ভালো একটা জিনিস, খুব তোমাদের মতন ইয়াং লোক যদি কলকাতায় কিছু করে আমার মনে হয় ভালো হবে। তো I said, sir, sure sir, আর কোনো অসুবিধা হলে জানাবে, কোনো তোমরা ব্যবসা বোঝো আমি বুঝি না, কিন্তু কোনো অসুবিধা হলে জানাবে। I came out, I felt, oh my God, Chief Minister is telling me that you should work in Calcutta, young people should work here. And I was also feeling that because I had told already my father that, why don't we work here? So I came and I told my dad, the Chief Minister has told me to work here.
Oh,
so
yeah.
He said, are you mad? You'll never be able to find him.
When you actually need him, or if you do.
So what do you want to do? I said, no, I'm going to work here.
But you kind of got a blessing almost.
Yeah, and I think he must have said it without any thought, just like you encourage a young person.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody comes and says, ভালো তুমি করছো, কলকাতায় কাজ করছো, ভালো করছো, that kind of thing.
আছি সঙ্গে এগিয়ে যাও,
আর কোনো অসুবিধা হলে জানাবে. So I think he said it very nonchalantly, without any such great anything, but I took it differently. And I took it because it suited my narrative. And
at least you could give it back to your dad for some way. আমাকে ডাকলো তো, বলেছিলাম আমাকে কাজ করতে।
And he was quite surprised. He said, oh, you actually met him? I said, yeah. He said, he called you? I said, yeah.
গুরু দায়িত্ব দিয়েছে কলকাতায় কাজ করার জন্য, I must do it now.
So he said, acha. So it started, and then of course I felt that I have at least a place to go to in case I fall into any trouble. Not that I would have needed it, or I did need it, but it just kind of gave me a sense of what should I say, a feeling that you should do what you can do. And that kind of stayed with me and has become an important part of my life, because a lot of times people tell me, अरे तुम ये building बनाता है, दिल्ली में बनाएगा, बॉम्बे में बनाएगा, you'll make so much more money. I said, it's not about the money. I just feel happier doing it here. I mean, I don't want to live elsewhere. I don't want to live elsewhere, not because I'm not going to make more money elsewhere. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not true. I've never done it, so I don't know. But supposing it is true, but I feel happy here. I feel I have a also a feeling of that somebody has to say that we lived here, we've got everything we are from this place. We should also give back, at least economically grow it. That's my job. I may not be able to do many other things, but at least this is one thing I can do. So there is this deep feeling, and thankfully my children share that. I mean, this is really a real blessing, I would say, because they are very modern children. I have not studied abroad. I studied later. I went to Harvard, but that was much later. I have studied mostly only in Calcutta, except for that stint. My children have a world citizen in that sense. They've studied abroad. They had a much wider opportunity, but they also chose that, and that is really their choice. Frankly, it's not something that I would have ever imposed on them, or I'm happy that they chose it, frankly.
You can be around you also.
Yeah, because to have them live at our home is the greatest blessing. I mean, I've lived in a joint family. I've lived with 3 sets of parents, 2 Jetima, 2 Jetha, father, mother, grandparents, and I've really loved that, every moment of it. Obviously, it becomes a little bit of a noisy space because there are too many people meddling around with everything, but in a way, it's also very, very endearing because we have this diversity of opinion, but there is a lot of convergence emotionally. I see that with Paroma and Parthiv as well, that they are very different people. They're twins. I sometimes feel that at birth, the brain got split into half. One got the entire creative brain, one got the entire analytical brain.
Left brain, right brain, a clear demarcation.
Right. So they argue, but it's so refreshing because what binds us is not ideas. What binds us is values. And the ideas can change and ideas can be argued.
And also they evolve over time.
Yeah, and why can't 2 ideas live together? I mean, we have so many religions living together.
Just like Calcutta, just like Bengal. It is a coexistence and convergence of emotions.
So I feel that, you can have that unity and diversity, which is very much exemplified by our city, by just having this kind of tolerance, if I may use the word, or maybe an acceptance that there is no one good idea.
There's something that you mentioned earlier in the story about the business club, Conclave, which was food. And you said, it was known as a place for food. And I have to go back to that because essentially Calcutta is still perhaps one of those places that is known for its food. And it takes great pride in being a place which serves up a good meal, irrespective of the time, day, month of the year, location or cuisine. It has a lot of it. My personal favorite Bengali restaurant is Shonaturi. And I'm not saying that to make you happy. I genuinely, every time I have a guest, an international guest coming from outside, and I want them to try good Bengali food, I find that to be a great representation of what would be served up in my grandmom's cuisine. Praise be to her, she just passed away.
Yeah.
And but she has treated me to those things and spoilt me with that cuisine, which I find it, almost exactly like that in Shonaturi. And through most of the work that you've done around building up these properties, I remember when we were younger, we used to go to that place, Ganga Kutir, ওইখানে যে জায়গাটা যেখানে ফোর্ট রায়চক ওইখানেও যে খাবারের ব্যবস্থাটার মধ্যে একটা অদ্ভুত বাঙালিয়ানা সবসময় there was that sense of Bengali, good Bengali food being served up in a way that does not stray from what Bengali food should be. But again, you are a vegetarian, so ওখানে কষা মাংসটা তুমি খাওনি, তুমি জানো না ওই পোলাও কষা মাংসটা কীরকম হয়. Why has it been important for you to keep that Bengaliness and do it at the highest levels? Shonaturiতে তো মঙ্গলবার দিন দুপুরবেলা গেলেও একটা জায়গা পাওয়া যায় না. Thankfully now the guys know me and they know I bring in guests. They'll always try and find a way to make it work. And I don't want to call anybody and get that done if not absolutely necessary. But ভালো কলকাতায় আছে অনেকেও তো করার জন্য করে, হার্শ নেওয়াটা করার জন্য করে না সেটা খাবারের ব্যাপারে হোক, না সেটা বাড়ির ব্যাপারে হোক, না সেটা একটা স্টেজে গিয়ে কথা বলার ব্যাপারে হোক. ওয়্যার ডিড দিস আইডিয়া?
না দেখো, সব আইডিয়া যে our matha থেকে এসছে সেটা নয়. The commitment to do it well is definitely a part of what I try to impress on my team. But it's a team effort, and frankly, because as you said, I'm a vegetarian, so there's only one part of it I can vouch for. There's another part of it that I have to depend on other people. But when you are passionate about something, my wife has been quite involved with our food earlier part in Conclave. She spent hours with food in the initial years. So we have, and then you build a relationship with your team, with your cooks and chefs, and you also learn, because when you are, we don't know, maybe I don't know how to cook, but I can definitely decipher and say that this is wrong with this. And maybe if you try this, it will work. But I'm not sure because I'm not an expert in that. But I think to identify the problem and leave it to the others to then figure out a solution is what we can do. And then people see your passion, I suppose, and then they try to do their best. It's not that we don't make mistakes and we don't get it wrong sometimes.
But consistently, it's been something dependable. I think consistently dependable is also something that qualifies for you as a person, or the projects that you take upon.
See, what do we have in life? We are all going to go away. There's only one truth, and that is we are mortal. We also know another truth, is that when it will happen, you don't know, and how it will happen. So sometimes we look at life as something, there's going to be an end to it or some such thing, but it's a journey, and this journey can be cut short any moment. The only thing that you can do while you are around is to make it pleasant, and make it pleasant for yourself, and make
for
it
those
pleasant
around
whoever around you. So that's the simple mantra I tell everyone कि बॉस पता नहीं है यार कब किस समय भगवान अपनी डोरी काट देगा and say boss enough is
हो
enough.
गया खत्म आपका time
So while we are around, let's not look at what will happen tomorrow. Let's just do what we can do, because there's only one truth, and that truth is today. About tomorrow we don't know. About yesterday there's no point repenting. It's gone. If you made a mistake, learn from it, but don't repent it, because it's gone. If you've done something right, don't gloat over it, because that was also gone. So smile at a good thing that happened, frown at something that didn't, and then carry on, because there's only one truth, and which is the present.
From that perspective, how would you place your belief or not in Calcutta? And for anybody who's building out of here today in 2025, for somebody who's at the brink of starting their journey or on the verge of starting their journey, do you believe that the city can present the same kind of opportunities it presented to you when you were starting off? And where do you see our city heading?
I'll be a little hopelessly biased, so people can discount it to whatever extent they need to do that. But what I feel is that because we are underserved is why we have the maximum opportunity. Because if we were over-flooded, maybe we would have done better, but we would have also had less opportunity. There's a lot of headroom available in Calcutta, because we have it in some ways economically. Maybe some other states have moved ahead of us. We have possibly done much better in the arts and in creative pursuits, etc. But in economic sense, maybe at least in terms of big industry and big business, we probably missed the bus somewhere, or maybe we have done something but not enough. So I think there's a lot of headroom, and I feel very optimistic that we, for various reasons. One is that it's a very liberal, cosmopolitan space. B, we have a tradition of great intellectual capability. C, we are at a very interesting location where we have many countries and many states that we become the natural gateway to. And then, of course, we have the convergence of the rising India story, the fact that we are becoming a fastest growing big economy, the fact that there is a huge amount of infrastructure push that is happening all across the country, including in this part of the region. So all these things are converging which is a golden, let's say, decade or two for the country. And Eastern India, we are the best poised, and Eastern India cannot be left behind. We are, in terms of, we are not one quarter, probably in economic space, we'll be less than that, but we have a much higher possibility of growing. So I feel extremely, and we often put a lot of that responsibility on the government. Some of it is definitely there, but a lot of it is also about your own courage of conviction and the willing to take some risk. Fundamentally, no business can be done without risk. I mean, if you knew you'd make this kind of money doing whatever you did, then nobody would do anything else. And everyone would do business. So that fundamentally it's a risky proposition, but it's not unbridled risk.
And it's always, from your personal experience, it's always paid off. You've done it with honesty, integrity, authenticity, and somehow, even without thinking it would, somehow it's paid off. So
yeah, there are projects that don't do well and some projects that do better, and those things happen. But yes, overall Sigma, you wouldn't have called me to a podcast if it didn't work out generally in a positive way. And I personally feel that a lot of, and I think today one thing I see is when I see the group of Bengali entrepreneurs, which you're
Bengal
a member
Business
of.
Council, yeah.
And then I see the EO and I see the YPO, and I see there's a lot of young energy now investing in the state. So I feel that the cycle has started turning, and there's a lot of energy and positivity. Is it higher in some other states? Possibly yes, because they have had the momentum for a longer period. But can we get there? I think we can catch up.
Critical mass is going to take perhaps a little bit more time, but it's also been crests and troughs of activity, right? It's not like Bengal didn't have industrial activity.
Yeah, of course. It has the history of having it first.
Losing it first also. I mean, truly before time for everything. True. But on the way back, we did speak, we touched briefly upon the idea of arts, and I would like to, perhaps start coming towards the close of this because it's really endless. তোমার সাথে বসেছি মানে এটা তো 5 ঘন্টার actually একটা recording হওয়া দরকার ছিল।
না আমরা তো কথা বলতে পারি, but your viewers will shoot you and me.
Viewers are loving it, I'm sure. ওরা যাই দেখছে এখন right now, I'm sure they're grasping onto every bit of it because everything's a bit of a nugget of real life lived experience meets masterclass in business, in art, in architecture. And ওই art পার্টটা নিয়ে আমি একটুখানি আসতে চাই because my connection with you was perhaps from that angle, where I see you as a patron of the arts. I see you as a custodian of great, culture, architecture, and you've been that for the entire city for a very long period of time. On one side, you've patronized people like a Shorendra Sommojit, let's say, just to take an example, and you've sort of been ওদের মাথায় হাত একটা অনেক দিন থেকে তোমার. On the other side, with India Story and how it has grown into sort of a seminal moment in the city's culture moving forward with fashion, with music, with everything that the young people want to see, and then spinning off a wedding diaries from it. I've seen all of those as never being tone deaf, always caring about what young people want in the now and being relevant for its time. And I've also seen it spanning between the past and the present very interesting, and even maybe pushing the city towards the future. Have you had like an underlying philosophy for how you patronize the arts?
So I must start with saying about my family and their deep commitment to this, because really it stems from there and it's really their foundation that we are building upon. So my uncle set up the Gyan Pravah Institution in Varanasi, which is a center for cultural studies, and we have a Sanskrit Pathshala also there. And his art collection is housed there, and we have a library there, and we have lots of courses that happen under the Gyan Pravah banner. So that is one institution. Then we have, so one of the things I want to thread this is that, I've all long believed that the civilizational history that India has, the cultural legacy, the cultural, bolte pari amra, the history of what we have inherited from our forefathers is something that we really can share with the world. And I think in a very interesting way, both Momata Di here in the state has also given a lot of prominence. Look at the way, much before the UNESCO recognized the Durga Puja, the carnival was started. I think that is a
Park Street Carnival.
Yeah, the Park Street Carnival and the Red Road
The
Carnival.
Red Road Carnival also, yes.
You know, it's a idea which the Durga Puja has been going on forever, but that idea to bring it all together in a sense of a showcase of the absolutely mind-blowing creative capability of our state. I don't think this kind of an open-air art exhibition of this quality is there anywhere in the world. No Biennale, no nothing. This is phenomenal. And then the fact that you got the UNESCO recognition, and the fact that last year we had the second highest foreign tourist arrival in the state was, to me, quite a revelation. And I'm sure these things have played a very significant role in that journey. Then you take what is happening in the country. And the fact that we are reimagining our heritage. We are focusing on, I happen to be on the Somnath Trust board, and the way that we are reimagining our temples and temple towns and trying to connect with our ancient civilization. And Prime Minister has given a lot of focus on taking India and connecting it with its roots.
Indic knowledge on the tradition, culture. Like this.
So when you see all these different threads, they kind of tie in very well with the way my family thought. For some reason, it was not in so much of focus, let's say 10 years, 15 years back. But at the state level, at the country level, right from the Prime Minister to the Chief Minister to everyone, is contributing towards building this cultural ecosystem and the reigniting of the civilizational history, which is so rich that the world has a lot to learn from and perhaps for us to share with. And I think the patronage that we provide is just like a minuscule drop in this entire process, but is just to add in whatever way we can to this resurgence, which I believe will be one of India's most potent soft power as we move up in the polity of nations as an economic power. Sadhguru in one of his speeches said that, we should not look for dominance. We should look for inspiration as a country. We don't want to be a superpower in a way that we want to dominate others.
We want to inspire.
We want to be an inspirational country where people want to be taking something from us and becoming more inclusive, more welcoming, Vasudeva Kutumbakam, the whole idea of the world being a family. So I thought that was a very interesting way of placing it, that, we want to be a superpower, but not in the dominant sense, but in this inspirational sense, where we can awaken all this energies. And I think that is happening in a very, very interesting way right across the country. The way we see the resurgence of different areas, and I feel very encouraged that this will help us in not only just becoming a very vibrant nation, but also very rich in our legacy, in our way of looking at life, in acceptance to so many different ideas that have come into our country from so many different places. I think that's something that I feel very, very excited about.
Thank you.
And so our contribution is a little drop in that.
No, but you might say it's a little drop in it, but for the people of the city, these have all become sort of institutions in themselves. These are things that people look forward to every year. And people love going to India Story. I know some of my favorite fashion designer friends from across the country, they look forward to coming to Calcutta for this particular event because they know this is something that's meant.
So before my wife hears this interview and says, listen, what are you talking about India Story? That's her baby.
Yeah, it is her baby. But again, from the family, I didn't mean
because
not to take anything away from her
at
at
a lighter
all.
note, I once, a Telegraph girl asked me, says, what do you have to say about India Story? I said, we have 3 children.
Hmm.
I have 2 children, my wife has 3 children.
Yeah.
How is this? So I said, because we share 2 children together. She has one more child called India Story.
And that is her
That's
own.
only hers.
That's only her.
And a metake or every year BA kore. So every year there's a blooming shadi where this girl is getting married.
And everybody in the city attends this shadi. This is a year on year.
So
what a
that's
celebration.
my wife's domain.
Yeah.
My role is to stand by in case, just like you have a joker in a pack whose use is only if you lose a card. So I have to be on standby. If there's something goes wrong, then you fix this.
Only
Till then,
মানে it can be anything. মানে স্টেজের গন্ডগোল
যা
হয়ে গেছে,
কিছু
একটা সাউন্ড
যা কিছু হ্যাঙ্গাম হবে তবে তোমার প্রয়োজন আছে, ততক্ষণ তুমি থাকো কিন্তু আর মাথা ঘামাও না।
সো ওইটা নিয়ে মাথা ঘামানোর জন্য মাধুয়ানটিকে একটা আলাদা পডকাস্টে নিয়ে আসতে হবে, আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ড মোর অ্যাবাউট ইন্ডিয়া স্টোরি অ্যান্ড হার থার্ড বেবি। আই থিঙ্ক উই must absolutely do that. And there's one last thing I wanted to ask before we again close this episode. I can't imagine যে এতক্ষণ সময় চলে গেছে, এবার ক্লোজ করতেই হবে। বাট আমাদের শহরে যারা বড় হয়েছে, আমরা এই সল্টলেক থেকে নিউ টাউন আশেপাশে এখান থেকে প্রত্যেকেরই প্রথম প্রেমের জায়গা ছিল হচ্ছে সিটি সেন্টার 1 এবং সিটি সেন্টার 1 ছাড়া আমার মনে হয় কলকাতা শহরের বেশিরভাগ মধ্যবিত্ত বাড়ির ছেলেপিলেরা বড়ই হতো না, কারণ ওরা প্রেম করার কোনো জায়গা ছিল না। খোলা আকাশের তলায় একটুখানি এখানে ওখানে খেতে টেতে, ওখানে কিছু কফির দোকান আছে, এখন তো স্টারবাকস হয়েছে, আগে তো সেটাও ছিল না, বাট পাশে একটা বড় মাঠ আর একটুখানি ওই উইন্ডো শপিং। দ্যাট হ্যাজ বিন ইন্টিগ্রাল টু দি পোস্ট কলেজ টাইম ফর মোস্ট বেঙ্গলিজ, most people living in this part, most Calcuttans, for the last 3 decades. কতদিন হলো সিটি সেন্টার 1? I think it's about 30.
No, it's 22 years.
22 years. That 20 বছর, 2 decades এটা হচ্ছে। How did this idea, and this one is more from my team than anybody else. আমাকে একটু আগে এসে বলে গেছে, please do not forget about asking him about City Center 1. So before closing, I must ask you on behalf of the team, what made you create such a differential mall of a model in a place where সবাই মলের কথা সবাই চিন্তা করে যে একটা হচ্ছে কংক্রিট বিল্ডিং, ভেতরে ভেতরে ঘুরবে লোকজন, বাট দিস ওপেন এয়ার মল ইন আ সিটি অ্যাজ হিউমিড অ্যাজ ক্যালকাটা। হাউ ডিড ইউ ডিসাইড টু গেট অন টু দ্যাট?
So I have to give the larger credit of this to Charles Correa. Frankly, we had given him a brief of making a mall the way a mall is made. But he came and spent some time in Calcutta and realized that, we have a temperate climate. Most people come during the evenings, except for 1 or 2 months. It's very comfortable to sit outside. If you have good cross ventilation, you should be fine. He persuaded me to do this kind of an open mall. Well, initially, I was skeptical, frankly. But then his logic was very interesting. And when you said Premier Golpo, it started with that. He said, the parks of our cities have ceded ground. I said, what happened? He says, because they have become not well maintained. They are badly lit. Common people can't afford going to restaurants and clubs. Where do they meet their boyfriends and girlfriends? This is Charles Correa telling me. So I said, sir, where do they meet? They said, they meet at public spaces like a mall.
A socially acceptable public spaces.
And where you have 3-4 things that must be there. You must have good security, that parents don't feel concerned if their children are there. You have to have good lighting. You have to have ample space for people to sit around without necessarily being obligated to buy anything or to spend anything. And you have to have good toilets.
Very important.
So I said, okay. Then one of my colleagues, senior engineer, he's telling me, sir, he's tell all this, but in the night all the vagrants will come and sleep on this thing because it's this is a very comfortable place for everyone to sit. So I thought about it and I quietly told Mr. Correa, sir, what happens if the vagrants will come? Why will the vagrants come? If you maintain a place properly, no vagrants will come. So I said, oh, okay. He was so much senior and I didn't know how to handle him. So I said, okay, sir. And he said, listen, we are not going to put chairs for people to sit. Please see colleges. All students sit on steps. So I said, okay, yes. He said, you know what is the reason? So I said, sir, I don't know. But yes, it happens. Maybe there's no other place to sit. No, it's deliberate. So I said, okay. He said, try 10 people sitting together in a huddle in any other way than in steps. So I said, okay. But he said, because when you sit in steps, you put your hand on someone's shoulder, you do this, and then you can sit in a huddle and you can have a conversation. It can only happen in steps. The second thing it does, it doesn't litter the place, that you moved around the furniture and the place looks like, it has been rampaged. Steps are steps. And so it's the best way. And we are going to make this kund. And we are going to have steps and there's going to be a fountain in the middle. And people will sit around. I said, okay. I said, oh my God, who will sit around? What will happen? Anyway, he kind of persuaded me and so I agreed. And you won't believe it, the first day when I opened City Center, we had one shop open called Shopper Stop, the departmental store. And nothing else was open because most people had not leased my shops because they thought that this mall is not going to work. It was in Salt Lake, which was a dormitory of Calcutta. There was hardly any commercial activity at that time. And the second was that, what sort of a mall is this? It'll become a bazaar. And Mr. Korea, and I mentioned this to him, he says, yeah, so what's wrong with a bazaar? It serves its purpose and people go there, they're happy.
Particularly for millennia, for centuries.
So I was thinking, I said, I want, branded shops. He wants to make it into a bazaar. Are we going to make it into Meena Bazaar? What the hell are we going to do? So all this confusion was there. But anyway, he persuaded me. My guy phoned me the next day of the inauguration and he said, sir, there are 5,000 people here. I said, doing what? Well, they're just hanging around here and there is no food to eat because the food court hadn't opened. So the T junction came up in 3 days. It is we didn't have a plan to open a T junction brand.
So that brand was made to serve City Center.
Just because there was no food. So of course the Modiwalas and all gathered around from somewhere, but we had no food. So immediately I used to go to Balwant Singh Dhaba for my tea before going to play tennis. Not every day, once or twice a week. So I was very fond of that bhaner cha and singhara. So initially when T Junction opened, there were only 2 items, bhaner cha and singhara in that corner shop. Bloody thing became such a big hit that after the food court opened, the sales didn't fall because we were thought कि food court खुलेगा तो बंद कर देंगे. My guy said, sir, sale नहीं कम हुआ है. तो हमें चलो चलाओ.
Now T Junction is like a full-fledged brand.
So
like,
now,
how many stores do you have?
We have about 100.
100 stores of T Junction, all because of cha singhara.
And out of a necessity because public came. And they were all sitting around in the kund, which Mr. Korea kind of envisaged. And I took photographs and I sent it. He said, see, I told you this is what young people will be doing.
And spectacular for the history of the city. I think City Center 1 will always play that role in our minds. Nobody took that step. It was a brave step. I'm glad you listened to Mr. Korea and you built out City Center 1. But I think on behalf of all lovebirds and romantic young people in the city, thank you for making City Center 1. Before, thank you for being who you are and doing all of that, because মা বাবা জেনে থেকেও একটা ভালো প্রেম করার জায়গা কিন্তু মানুষজনকে গিফট করা গেছে এটার মাধ্যমে. I think that was an incredible experience of doing a podcast with you. This has been something at the back of my mind for a long time. I'm glad that you so willingly chose to accept this request.
I chanced upon your podcast and then I watched at least 4-5 of them. I don't know how many have been released. And I found that this whole idea of Make Calcutta Relevant Again was very, very emotive to me. We are always short of time to watch a lot. But when I saw this, I said, wow, this is something that, resonates with what I have long desired and wanted to do. But you've paraphrased it very beautifully. And I said, this is an interesting podcast because it's focusing on one idea. I mean, different people, but one idea. And the one idea is, how do we make Calcutta relevant again? And nothing can gladden me more than this happening, really. Of course, Calcutta is relevant, I would say, but making it more relevant is something that we can all work towards. So. Congratulations to you and your team.
Thank you.
Vibrant young team. I see so many of them here.
Very, very young, and they keep making me happy to come to work. I mean, we shoot these podcasts in a block once every 3 months or so, but the team gets completely, this is something that's so dear to their hearts, and they put that together. But just also to let you know that this is not just a podcast, it's a movement that we started in the back of my mind a long time back to support arts and culture, music, startups, whatever was happening in the city in our own ways. But also we have a festival that we do. In fact, the first edition of the festival happened at Talkuti. There was the first big event.
Yes, I remember that.
The CCU festival. That was the first initiative from Make Calcutta Relevant Again. 4,000 Calcutta lovers and optimists had turned up for that one. The second one was too big. We couldn't fit it in Talkuti. Then we took it to Bisho Bangla Exhibition Center. 15,000 people turned up for that one. But it's been a great time, sort of celebrating the little wins and the big wins in Calcutta, celebrating the people that we look up to, that we want to hear more about their stories from their lived experiences. And from that regard, it's an ongoing mission that we and the team have, apart from whatever we do in our daily lives, to continue giving back to the city in some way. So to close off the podcast, one last little thing. I know there's a lot of things that you do to give back to the city. Your patronage is exemplary. Your family's patronage for the arts and culture over time has been exemplary. And your deep commitment to being in the city and building in the city has been something that we can all learn from. But for the podcast, for all our guests, we ask them, subtly nudge them to take a pledge, at least in the next, let's say, 1 year. What is it that you would like to give back to the city of Calcutta?
So you want me to say about something that we're doing or something new? Or
it can be something new that you propose. It can be something that you've already been doing and you would like to let people know so they can sign up. But basically, when this episode comes out, there'll be a link at the bottom, whatever you propose, or our team will work with your team on that and come up with a separate pledge. It can be for a certain number of people, can be for a larger audience, can be a mentorship, can be fellowship, can be a patronage, can be anything at all. But this is something that...
So we do have a robust Suresh Neotia scholarship scheme, which we provide to meritorious and competent girl students.
Excellent.
Who come from needy backgrounds. We're happy to add some more numbers to that. We I think support about 250 odd students at the moment. So we can add another 10, 20, whatever you say. That's number one. Number two is, of course, I'll be happy to mentor a student, have them do a internship with us in the office, maybe.
Excellent. I think young people will be very excited to work alongside your team.
Yeah, I will be happy to have one or two
good interns.
Good interns to help them maybe for 6 months. And then, of course, if there is an opportunity in our company and they're interested, we can obviously absorb them. But if not, they can go.
We have two things in mind already. And I think we're going to make sure that this information reaches all the audiences of the Make Calcutta Relevant Again podcast. The relevant links will be present on this episode when you're watching it. And thank you again for
pleasure.
Just being your usual giving self as always. I think with a little bit of time that we spend, I think there's nothing bigger as a gift that we can probably get in terms of learning.
No, I think together we all actually, you have set the movement, and I think that's really most important, because getting something going is most important. I think this body of interviews that you would have over a period of time, I think you have about 50 or thereabouts, would be an invaluable collection of ideas. At some point of time, I think it would be interesting to have someone edit through and pick up ideas from each one and
actionable
create
ideas.
Ideas from the conversation, not just the giving bit.
Of course, the giving bit is very recent.
Yeah, that's of course one element. But in a conversation, at least the ones that I have heard from you, people drop an idea. At some point of time, compiling that idea, once maybe you hit 100 episodes or something like that, into a small docket, that this is what we can, coming from so many different people, we can do to make Calcutta a better place.
Amazing.
That could be very interesting, a little thing coming out.
100%.
And just a bullet pointed thing, not a long thing.
Yeah.
Just an actionable small leaflet, maybe that is also available on the net. And 100 people giving maybe 100
ideas to make Calcutta
relevant again.
Relevant again. That would be lovely. We're going to take you up on that.
Yes.
Maybe we will ask your help once again at the end of 100 episodes. How do we make sure we reach the most important people to make those ideas into a reality?
We should engage with the government. We should engage with other media houses.
Yeah.
To reach that. But I think let's start with having the idea, because if the idea is potent, it'll have wings.
Yes.
If the idea is not so interesting, then it won't have wings.
Then it won't, yeah. And then hopefully with collective action and with good intent, we truly can make Calcutta relevant again.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the close of another episode. I think one of my favorite episodes on the podcast so far, from somebody who I've looked up to for a very long time. And I think when you have finished watching this episode, do let us know what you feel about the ongoing movement, how you can be an integral part of the movement as well. We are always open. We're always looking for new energy to come and join us on this movement. This is Meghdut signing off. Thank you very much once again to Mr. Harshavardhan Neotia for joining us and sharing your stories, invaluable bits of knowledge with us on the podcast. And we hope to have you again very soon with us to continue on the conversation.
Now this time your audience will beat you up. So
now they will. So you might ask Madhu Aunty to join in that case and get India's story.
She can come on her own, because if we sit together, they'll be most of the time quarreling.
We will separately ask her to come and join us on the podcast. But thank you so much once again. This is Meghdut signing off. See you on the next episode of Make Calcutta Relevant Again, the podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Make Calcutta relevant again. You already know. Relevant again.